Hey everyone, this is Bernth. I'm at Sweetwater to talk about 4 tips that drastically changed my guitar playing and career. And I really hope I can help you with this and that they will help you as well. First thing I'd like to talk about today is picking technique, because that was a huge factor. When I started out, I started with a pretty kind of crazy picking grip. I was a self-taught guitar player mostly. So I had an open hand when I was picking, which is fine. A lot of great players play like this. But my pick wasn't attacking the strings like this. It was kind of at a reverse angle, like that. It's really weird to do that now after all those years, but I will give it a try. Of course, I was mostly into metal. As soon as I got into tremolo picking, like this, the chaos already started, as you can hear. I was kind of touching multiple strings when I was playing like this, and the movement came from my entire arm. So I wasn't really in control of the note values that I was playing. It wasn't really 16th notes, wasn't really triplets. It was just pushing as fast as possible. Over the years, I completely restructured my technique to what you see right now. So to a closed hand technique, which allows me to fire pretty controlled bursts like this coming from my wrist. This has helped me out a lot because on one hand, I feel much more in control by activating my wrist like this. So I can really feel the subdivisions or note values that I'm playing. So for example, when I'm going for 16th notes, I can feel the individual notes. And closing the hand also helped me out a lot, because whenever I did this, I felt like my fingers are kind of flopping around quite a bit. As soon as I started closing it and also placing the palm on the bridge like this, I felt much more in control with different playing styles. So it doesn't really matter if I'm strumming chords or doing my kind of modular picking technique. Pretty much everything that I do works with this one technique. When I'm playing through scales like this, so even with a clean tone, I feel very much in control of the movement, as opposed to when I try to go back to my old technique, playing from my, like the full arm and with this reverse grip, I don't feel in control that much. I think you can hear the difference immediately. The one exercise I can recommend when it comes to actually fixing your technique and working on that picking is just sticking to short bursts. So just what I did a little bit earlier, just maybe going for something like this and setting the metronome to quarter notes, and you're playing 16th notes, and you're mostly just focusing on the one note that falls on the beat. So you're not even thinking about every single picking stroke. You're really just thinking about that one note. So when I'm doing this, I'm actually thinking about those downstrokes whenever the metronome clicks. I focus on just using the wrist. Over time, you can switch to a distorted tone, of course, have a little bit more fun, and add a different note with the fretting hand for every single note that lands on the beat like this. And then doing stuff like this. So that's my recommendation when it comes to picking technique. The second topic, since we already talked about that a little bit just now, is fretting hand technique. This was also something that was really, really bad for me as a self-taught guitar player. So if you look at the very early videos that I posted on YouTube, maybe I started the channel like 13 years ago, you can see that my fretting hand was not exactly controlled. The pinky finger was flying away from the fretboard, and I was also kind of fretting the notes at an angle like this. And the faster it got, the more kind of cramped up it looked like. Maybe an example that everyone knows: when you play just the A minor pentatonic scale in the most common position, you only need your pinky finger for that first note, then you go to the index finger, and for a lot of players that looks like this right here, which results in some problems because your pinky has to travel back and forth. That might result in some string noise, and building speed is very difficult. And the one exercise I found that really helped me with this, that I want you to try out, I think you're gonna like it as well, although it's a little bit frustrating at first, is just taking a very simple chord voicing, let's say an E minor chord right here. In the next step, you slightly lift your fingers, just a little bit, like that. You probably didn't even see that on camera, but now when I play the chord, it doesn't sound that good anymore, because the notes are essentially muted. I want to play every single note of the chord individually, but I'm only pressing down with the one finger where I want the notes to ring out. So for the first note, I'm pressing down with my index finger like this. All the other fingers are right on the frets and on the strings, so the strings are muted. Then when I move to the next note, I'm only pressing down with the ring finger, then I'm only pressing down with the pinky, and then only with the middle finger, while all the other fingers remain on the fretboard. And that looks super easy, but when you give it a try for the first time, it will feel super awkward to do that, because what you actually want to do is kind of move every single finger into place. So this exercise will teach you that your fingers can stay very close to the neck. This was one of the game changers. I started working on simple chord progressions, because you go crazy when you just do this with one chord for, I don't know, a couple of hours. So just next step, take a simple chord progression and do that. Just press down with one finger at a time while keeping the other fingers on the neck. And over a couple of weeks, you will see a drastic decrease in movement when it comes to your fingers. The next thing I'd like to talk about is a practice routine. This is what changed everything for me. I know that this is not some kind of magic trick. You actually have to work quite a lot, but I do have some tricks for you when it comes to just, I don't want to say forcing yourself to practice every day. But I feel like the one major mistake that I see from students that sign up on Patreon, on my online guitar academy, for example, is that when they get into practicing every day, they get very excited, which is awesome. But they start out with 3 to 4 hour routines, which might go well for a couple of days, maybe even a couple of weeks. But then one day they kind of wake up and they're like, I've got a lot to do, didn't get any sleep, just gonna skip one day. And one day turns into 2 days, 3 days, and so on, and then there's no practice routine anymore. So my biggest suggestion is starting with something very realistic. I really like 1 hour. It might not sound like a lot, but in my experience, 1 hour of consistent practice always beats, I don't know, 5 years of doing 3-hour sessions, maybe once or twice a week. So it's really about the daily thing, practicing every day. And I also like 1 hour because you can easily split it into 4 different parts of 15 minutes. For example, you could do 15 minutes dedicated to your picking technique with different exercises every day and your fretting hand technique. You also want some music theory in there, of course, not just mechanical exercises. And you can always swap those blocks every single week so that you don't just work on the 4 same things all the time. That's a great start because it's very realistic to do. Everyone has 1 hour to not watch Netflix or YouTube or anything like that. Once you get comfortable with that, you can turn that into 2 hours. Like I do 2 to 2.5 every single day to work on either the set that I have to play or just pushing my technique further. Just start with something realistic, turn it into a system with small blocks. And I promise if you stick to that every single day for just 1 hour, you will see massive results in a very short time. And the last thing I really recommend is fretboard visualization. I know that this is not very exciting, but fretboard visualization is what unlocked a lot of things musically. So I don't just want to play exercises very well, I also want to write really cool songs and get creative with all that hard work on my technique. A lot of guitar players, especially in rock and metal, when they look at the fretboard, they don't really see anything because they mostly work with tabs and like numbers that tell you where to place your fingers. And even when they dive into the world of scales, they study diagrams that tell you where to put every single finger. But once I got forced to really internalize the fretboard, studying jazz guitar at the conservatory for around 4.5 years, I got much more creative because I could suddenly see chord shapes and could play arpeggios on top. This is a riff that I always like to play from my song called Dopamine. where I can see the chord shape right here, and I can play a scale or arpeggio right there, because I can actually see what notes I could choose from. A couple of tips, quick tips to get you started on that. First of all, it gets much less intimidating. I think you know that already. Everything repeats in the next octave starting from the 12th fret. As a teenager, this was a big relief for me that you don't actually have to learn the whole fretboard. You can just learn it up to here, then it repeats. The other thing is that we obviously have 2 E strings, high and low one, so one problem less. If that's a G on the 3rd fret, you also have your G right here. And the next cool thing is that you get a really nice triangle shape once you start thinking in octaves. So if you already know that your A is right here on the 5th fret, you also know that your A is right here on the 7th fret because of the octave shape. And since we established 2 E strings, you also know that you have your A right here. And that actually looks like a cool triangle, right? That's also something that will make you more familiar with the D string once you internalized the E string, and you can always think like upwards in octaves or the other way around if you're not familiar with the higher strings yet. So use that octave advantage we have on the guitar. That's pretty much the only advantage we have, because on the piano everything's a bit more linear and I guess easier when it comes to that. On the guitar we can play the same note in very different locations, but use octaves to familiarize yourself with the fretboard. And if you want to actually benefit from the piano approach, you could start by learning the white keys first, so to say, and then fill in the black keys. So if you know that this is E and this is G, for example, the note below G or in between F and G can only be F, raise the semitone, so F sharp, or G, lower the semitone, so G flat. So this is also something that makes it less intimidating. Once you have the white keys, the black keys are just the lower white key raised or the higher white key lowered. All right, my friends, I really hope these 4 quick tips helped you. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. If you want to, you can also subscribe to my channel, where I occasionally talk about fun guitar stuff like this. Have an amazing day. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.